Let's talk about a little mobile device disassembly. Before I get into the theory behind it, just wanted to show some of the hand tools that I use. Got to have hand tools when you're working with laptops and smartphones and tablets. And so I got a bunch here. Here's some of my go-to tools that I use the most often. And probably the number one tool is this metal spudger. You've probably seen me use it. It's thin, strong, metal, not really very flexible, but I use this a whole lot. And so that's a go-to tool, the spudger. And if I need something a little bit more flexible, I'll use something like this plastic. You could call this a spudger or a shim. And flexible, thin, kind of strong though. So I use that. And then a wide shim that is somewhat flexible for removing a lot of the plastic bezels, things like that. Good pair of sharp, pointy tweezers. Very needle nose. So those are some of my real go-to tools for opening up devices. Then, of course, you need all kinds of screwdrivers. So, your standard screwdrivers like your number 1 Phillips head, but then you got to get smaller. And so we got a number 0 Phillips head here. Got a T10 Torx, but that quite often won't even be small enough. So we go with much smaller Torx screwdrivers. I think this is a 1.2 and a 0.8. And some mini Phillips head and flathead. Now, over time, you don't really want to have a bazillion screwdrivers, so it's better to just have a bit driver. This is a bit driver I've had. It's older than me. And just take your bits, whatever bits you have. Phillips head, flathead, Torx. This is a hex bit. And I got a whole set of hex bits here because some of the devices I deal with metric hex, hexagonal. And so got from big to small. And you can buy any bits that you need, whatever it is, and put them right in your bit driver. And you can even store some of them in here, right? So just don't go with any magnetic bits. And whenever you're working on devices, make sure you have your anti-static your ESD prevention method set up, anti-static strap and mat, and make sure everything is properly grounded. I talk about that and show a setup that I use in another video. And so you see other stuff that I have here, tweezers, more prying tools and shims and spudgers. Here's a backup spudger. Here's a whole group of spudgers, different types. And here's a more flexible but metal, very thin, other type, kind of multi-tool. And so you want to have all this stuff. Another good tool to have is a magnifying glass with a flashlight. Very handy. And some wipes, some cloth, lint-free, clean cloth for screens and so on. So a bunch of tools here that I use for working with mobile devices. And definitely, you can buy kits also. I usually just kind of collect tools one by one, but they make kits as well. There's a couple companies that do that. But over time, you find that you need other types of tools, and you need to kind of add on with different stuff. So definitely check it out. Of course, you want to have a multimeter and a couple other electronic testing tools, but this objective is more about the hand tools that you'll use. So let's get into a little of the theory of it as well. Hey, real quick, we're going to round out the troubleshooting mobile devices lesson by just talking about a little bit of mobile device disassembling processes. And when disassembling your laptop or other mobile device, you want to implement the following procedures. And these are very, very basic, and we've talked about them already. This is just a quick review. But first, you want to document everything. I don't care if you're taking apart a desktop computer or a laptop or your tablet or your smartphone. Document everything you do. What are the parts? Write it down. What screws went where? What cables went where? You want to label the cables, label the parts, not on top of a circuit board or chip, mind you, but label as much as you can. Label the screw locations. Write it down in your notebook. do a drawing, create a drawing of what you see and where everything connected. This is what my students benefit from the most. When they do really good documentation in their notebook, they really learn the parts and how the device works. And organize your parts. Make sure you organize everything. You know, keep the screws in one of those tubes or in one of those pill cases, and keep all the other parts lined up in the order that you took them out. This way, because usually when you put the device back together, you're going to do it in reverse order. So you'll have all those parts in a row and you'll know which is next. That'll help you. And use the appropriate hand tools. And we mentioned if you're going to open up a device like this or like this, you're going to want to have a good shim. And a plastic or a wood shim that's very thin is the best way to go, so you don't damage the bezel or the plastic of the devices. Then you're going to want to have that number 1 screwdriver, and you're going to want to have some smaller screwdrivers, maybe a jeweler's screwdriver or smaller ones that you can find at the home center. And you want to have some small Torx screwdrivers as well, which, by the way, sometimes you might see that written as a Torx wrench, but they're really Torx screwdrivers. And the main thing here is you're using hand tools. You're not using power tools. You're not using a motorized drill. You don't want to use a vacuum on the inside of these devices. You don't want to have anything that has anything to do with power or anything that has anything to do with too much torque. You got to be real careful with these devices. They're extremely delicate. And of course, always implement anti-static protection. You want to have that anti-static strap connected to some type of earth bonding point. You can also place these on an anti-static mat and have that connected to an earth bonding point. And finally, refer to manufacturer resources. Go to the websites for the operating systems. You know, go to the iOS support and the Android support and the Windows, support.microsoft.com and the TechNet. Use the manufacturer resources to help you figure out what possible problems there might be when you're troubleshooting your devices. You can also go to third-party forums, but it's the manufacturer's websites that are most recommended. And also use manufacturer's resources as far as parts. We're talking batteries. If you're going to change out the battery on, say, a Samsung Note device, you want to use a Samsung battery. Same thing with this. This is a Toshiba laptop. You want to make sure you use a Toshiba laptop, and it's not recommended that you use third-party hardware for batteries or for other devices. Go with the manufacturer stuff. Go with what comes from Apple or from Toshiba or from HP or from Samsung or what have you. So to wrap it up, make sure you refer to the manufacturer for your information and other resources. Use appropriate hand tools. Organize your parts. Label the cables, the parts, the screw locations, draw it out, and document everything in your notebook. That's the number 1 best way to learn how this stuff works and also to troubleshoot any problems that might occur. Your documentation is really going to help you think out your problems and get good solutions to them. So that rounds out this sub-lesson, and it closes out the lesson for troubleshooting mobile devices.